About where this all came from?
It came directly from Belgium, where a group of great writer-producers made a show called Cordon, like Cordon Sanitaire, set in Antwerp, and it's basically about the release of a virus that they don't quite know how to cure or treat that is deadly, and what the city has to do to ensure that even though it's gotten out, how can they contain it so that it doesn't spread to the rest of the city and then ultimately globally, because there is no way to stop it. So they set up a quarantine zone, and about a couple thousand people are trapped inside, and the show is really about those in the inside and the people on the outside trying to make sure everybody else stays safe and trying to deal with the fact that some of them have actually lost people to the inside of the quarantine. So it's good. It's good character stuff, good virus stuff, a little creepy, scary horror stuff.
Most of your other shows have a lot of supernatural elements in them, but this one, the thread is so grounded in reality and like very realistic. Was that more challenging for you to write?
It's actually so wonderfully not challenging. It's amazing, like, and it not for lack of trying. You know, it just everything just presents itself so honestly, because you think about what would I do and how would I act, and then you can create the different parts of yourself. You're like, well, there's part of me that would be a champion, you know, part of me that would be running scared and hiding in the closet, you know, so you really get to explore all the different parts of your own survival instincts and all those games we played around the table at night, like what would I do in the zombie apocalypse. I get to tap into all that stuff, but it's just so nice because these characters are so direct and honest and simple and kind of everyman, and so writing it is completely different than writing the other two shows, but it's really refreshing.
You've spoken before about how the themes of grief and family have been really central in, especially the Vampire Diaries.
Yeah.
What were the themes that really made you want to explore this story?
A lot of the same, believe it or not.
They're deep themes.
Yes, exactly. I'm obsessed with death and how people feel about death and the fear of death. Really, it's the fear of death. I think that if I was tapping into my own deepest fears, it's fear of dying and fear of dying alone, you know. So I think that those things manifest in everything I do, and in this particular case, it's that, you know, there's a legit fear. Every person you pass by, every person that bumps into you, you know, that you could be dead within 48 hours. And so not only just having to make decisions about how to be a survivalist, but also like, who does that bond you to? Who are you going through this with? It's a different kind of family. It's family by emergency, you know. There's a great storyline that Christina Moses' character, she's not here today, but she's trapped in her office and she works at a data recovery center, and so it's all clean rooms and they have to wear bunny suits and stuff. But she and 3 of her coworkers spend pretty much the entire run of the season trapped in the penthouse building of a downtown office building, and it becomes in its own way. They are a tight-knit community. They don't even necessarily like each other at the beginning, but they go through hell together, and it changes all of them and their relationships to each other. So it's been really fun. I mean, there's so many great cry moments, you know, and I always say, like, I really hope that people who are like true blue genre horror people, because we know and love them, will stick around for the mush, as I call it, the good mush. And I hope that people who are usually scared of that kind of thing will stick around for the horror, because the mush is so good.
Your other shows tend to have a lot of like sex appeal to them. How does that work with a show like this, where like people literally can't even touch each other?
Yeah, no, that's the best part, is like, there is nothing overt about anything sexual in this show, and yet there's something inherent in not being able to act on a feeling or desire that is really interesting. And there's one central couple that evolves over the course of the season who, as they get closer and closer, they realize just how weird it is to bond with someone when you have no intimacy at all. So you have to find intimacy in other ways and in other places, and that's kind of what's beautiful, is you're just channeling all those like great like Pride and Prejudice, like back in the day when like you had to keep your distance from Mr. Darcy because you were a lady, you know. It's just a different form of that.
Yeah, we're like pushing daisies.
Yes, exactly. You know, I mean, there's a sweetness to it that's also really creative. You know, we have a great shower scene coming up where, of course, people can't get naked or touch. So what happens, you know? should be
You
good.
worked with Chris Wood on The Vampire Diaries, obviously. So did you sort of like handpick him and say, I want you for this?
I know, you know what's funny is I knew I wanted to work with him after we decided that Kai, you know, would meet his end. And I didn't think he'd get the part because I thought he was too young. And so we talked about it, and I gave him the Belgian show to watch. He fell in love with the character, and he read the pilot, and he wanted it so badly. And I just, you know, I'm like, I don't know, man. And what was so great is, you know, because he's a friend of mine. We got to know each other pretty well last year, and I really like this person. And I'm like, oh, he's coming into audition. I hope it goes well. And he walked out, and David Nutter, the director, was like, oh yeah, he's our guy. And I went, he is? You know, and he just loved him instantly. And so then it was a thrill because I knew that we were quietly, like, that he was our choice, which of course can't tell him that, but it was kind of cool.
Did you have any influence on any of the casting?
Well, I have as much influence as one can have in a situation where you've got network executives and studio executives and everybody kind of chiming in. I mean, what we do is we present our top choices to them, and in a perfect world, they agree with us. And in this case, we actually were pretty successful with that. But I've also had casting stories, you know, that I've been very public about in the past, where what we wanted and what the network wanted were two completely different things, and the network was right. So I am perfectly willing to listen when they speak up. They've been right. Two different networks have been right two very unique times in my career. So I never get precious about fighting too hard if they have a strong feeling about something.
Can you talk a little bit about how much of the original show you kept from the Belgian series and where you kind of let it diverge?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's funny because it's wildly different, and yet probably if I went back and looked at the two side by side, it would almost be exactly the same in a lot of ways. Because what we did was we watched the whole thing, and then I sat with Matt Corman and Chris Ord, who are the co-showrunners, and we spent 1 week in the beginning of June just saying, okay, how do we want this story to play out? Like, here's what we know. We love the way that relationship ended. We love the way that person died. You know, we love the way that these two people got to know each other, you know. And so how are we going to fit that into our world? And then we gave the whole season a shape. We never looked back at the series again after we watched it the first time. The writers would go in and like look at certain things for influence, but we just had collected all our favorite things and then put them into the season the way that we felt like we could make them work. And so there's a lot of similarities, and yet some things that they did completely differently.
You've adapted books into a television show before, kind of jumping off what you're just, talking about. How, if at all, has it been different adapting a foreign television show?
Oh God, it's so great.
Yeah.
It's so great. And I'll tell you why. Every writer is completely wildly insecure. And the only way that you really can have any confidence in what you do is to believe in yourself and to believe in your own instincts. And so that if you say, this is what we should do, you think it will work. And that's the way that you get through network notes, and that's the way that you get through development, and that's the way that you run a room with a bunch of people who have differing opinions. You're like, no, instinctively I believe this. So when you have a series like Cordon, which was so good, I entered this whole experience with that confidence because I knew I was just honoring another person's work and then making it my own, but all within the kind of same tone and attitude of what they did. So I knew it worked. So any idea that came into my head, I'm like, yeah, that's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. You just could feel the confidence. You never second guess yourself. You never suffer. You're never like, oh, I have no ideas. I don't know what to do, because there's always something else that you can pull from. How did they do it? So it's been one of the more pleasurable and easy experiences I've ever had in my whole career. Which means it will either be fantastic or terrible, because karmically that's just what happens. But it's great.
Were you worried about bringing the show to the CW at all? Because it's kind of very different.
It's funny. I had dinner with Mark Pedowitz. He comes to town to Atlanta to take all the cast of all the shows to dinner, and we were talking about the CW and why it's nice to work there. Because of the shorthand and the trust and all that and the relationships that we've built. But I admitted to him, I said, I wanted to do a cable show. I wanted to do a show personally. I wanted to swear and get naughty, but I really just wanted to do something that didn't have to fit into the mold of what one would call like a broadcast network show. But before I could do that, we had to sort of present it to the broadcast networks because that's Warner Brothers. That's who they want to make TV for. And then CW, of course, is their sister company. And they wanted it so much. And really, really were so enthusiastic about it. And I thought, well, if they're this enthusiastic about this material, that they're fighting to get it, like, why would I go create, especially in a year when I've got 2 other series on the air, try to build a new relationship with new executives who I don't know, who they don't trust me yet. They don't know that I'm working off instinct that they believe in. They just think I'm like some random person. And this network, if they can get eyes to the show, it could change them, you know? And if they can't, then it's still a good show, and they, you know, we're all lucky to have each other. So I decided not to sell it, not to go to cable, and to stay at the home that I knew and loved. And it's been great, because about 3 episodes in, they were giving the same note over and over again, you know, and it had a lot to do with like upping the conflict and the consequences and like ending on a bang and that kind of stuff, which is very, you know, on Vampire Diaries we do that all the time. And I was like, guys, I gotta say this out loud. This show is like a slice of life. Every episode, it's like this episode is the episode where they're hungry and they need to get food, you know? The next episode is the episode when the electricity isn't working, you know? Like they're very simple day in the life problems in a very not simple, horrific context. So the context gives you all the drama that you need. You don't need to then do plot twists and turns and crazy shit, you know. The show is just, it works so much better on a real human level. And they backed off and they're like, absolutely, we trust you, do it how you want to do it. And so, again, who knows, maybe everyone will watch and be like, nothing happens. But it's actually I think it's pretty beautiful.